Welcome to another lecture on construction safety, and today we're going to discuss construction safety and health program. What are the ingredients of that program, what's the importance of the program, and how to implement it within a construction organization and work environment. So any construction company must have a written and documented safety and health program for several reasons, including ethical reasons, regulatory reasons, economic reasons, and practical reasons. So we're going to discuss each one of these sets of reasons and see why does it make sense to have a written safety program. For the ethical factors, it is the right thing to do, as we have the right and the ethical obligation to protect our employees on site. It reflects the company's commitment to the employees' health, safety, and well-being. And companies without such a plan experience 30% more accidents than those with plans. As we're going to see later on, or as we have already learned, that having a written safety program and enforcing it can help reduce the penalties once the company is cited for any safety violations. And that reduction can be up to 25%, which is not small change. Regulatory factors. Federal and state regulations require that the companies maintain a safe and healthy work environment. Some federal regulations specifically require a written plan to focus on specific issues, such as a fall protection plan. You have to have a clear fall protection plan with proper training for the employees who might be subject to falls. Emergency action plan in case of injury or in case of fatality. What should one do? What should the people on site do? Blood-borne pathogens and exposure control plan, especially with AIDS, HIV, and other blood-transmitted diseases. If someone gets injured and there's blood on site, how to protect oneself. Having a comprehensive plan leads to more than compliance, as it helps establish a high-quality work environment. People are going to have the feeling that the company cares for them, and therefore they're going to perform in a better way. For economic factors, accidents and injuries are directly and indirectly expensive. Directly because of the cost of treatment or the cost of compensation and so on, and indirectly because the low morale, the low lost productivity, and the delays that might result from shutdown of the site during the investigation and for the repairs. A good health and safety plan can save the company a lot of money related to the following: holding down insurance costs, that's a direct cost; reducing costly litigation resulting from injuries or fatalities, God forbid; reducing temporary and permanent disability claims; increasing employee morale and therefore productivity; securing a good reputation and track record leading to more contracts. Definitely owners are going to be more interested in contracting with someone who has a good safety track record rather than a shoddy one. Reducing the number of compliance inspections and associated citations and penalties resulting therefrom. We have learned during the lecture on penalties and citations and inspections that these can be very costly, so definitely that's a very viable economic factor. Practical factors. The practical reasons for implementing the plan include forcing the company to put its commitment in writing. So we claim that we are a safety conscious organization. Let's put that in writing and let's implement that. Forcing the company to establish policies and set goals for safety and health. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So we have to put some guidelines and some concrete measures to how to achieve that safety in order to improve safety performance on site. Commits in writing the procedures that must be followed by all employees and subcontractors, so no one can claim I didn't know. And facilitates communication of policies, procedures, and goals related to the quality of the work environment, so we are all speaking the same language. Different components of the plan include the safety and health policy, safety and health goals, roles and responsibilities of the different personnel, discipline policy and procedures in case someone does not abide by the rules, job site inspections, accident investigations, record keeping, what kind of records have to be kept, how often, where are they going to be posted, training, how often should that training be renewed and refreshed, medical response and first aid in case of any accidents, what's the closest medical facility, for example, emergency response, and miscellaneous components like fall protection, electrocution, the focus 4 that we discussed before. We're going to discuss each one of these in more detail in this lecture. So the safety and health policy. The safety policy is a statement of the company management's commitment to high quality work environment. We are stating that we are striving to create a work environment free from any hazards or any accidents. To emphasize the commitment, it should be signed by the company's CEO to show that it comes from the top, and usually safety starts at the top. Should communicate at least the following: commitment to providing a safe and healthy work environment, and that this environment is a high priority of the company. It comes before cost, it comes before time, it comes before anything else. All employees are expected to work in a safe and healthy fashion, and that safety and health regulations and rules will be enforced. Safety and health goals describe the company's commitment in more specific and measurable terms. Should be stringent enough to challenge the organization, but at the same time realistic enough to be credible and enforceable. It must include a provision for 0 fatalities, because that's our main goal, and it must include a measurable provision for lower downtime due to accidents and injuries, and it also must include a provision related to employee training to achieve these goals. So we're going to help you maintain and achieve these goals. What are some samples of these safety and health goals? Examples include such goals like 0 fatal accidents during the year, reduce health-related injuries by 25%, again a concrete number, reduce lost time due to accidents by 40%, reduce workers' compensation claims by 30% from the previous year or from a benchmark number, reduce the cost of damage to the company property and equipment by 20%, reduce near-miss accidents by 25%. A near-miss accident is something that was about to cause an accident but it did not. So it's called a near-miss. And increase participation in employee safety training by 100%. So everyone should be part of that effort. When it comes to responsibility and roles, as part of a comprehensive health and safety environment, every team member has a role and associated responsibilities. Management responsibilities include establishing and maintaining commitment to safety and health, developing the policies, setting the goals such as the ones we just mentioned on the previous slide, providing resources, because again, if you want to maintain these goals, you have to spend money and to provide resources, whether it's going to be in training, whether it's going to be in orientation, or the provision of the personal protective equipment and other devices to protect the employees on site. Setting a positive example, it's best to lead by example, and organizing and directing, monitoring, controlling, evaluating, revising, and learning from the program. All of these are the responsibilities and roles of everyone who's involved with the safety program, especially the top management. Supervisors' responsibilities, for example, include complying with all applicable rules and regulations, not cutting any corners, putting safety ahead of other factors, not rushing someone, for example, to perform a certain job, knowing that the work environment is risky at this time. Take your time and put safety first. Attending periodic safety meetings and discussions, participating in safety training to be up to date on the different developments and changes in rules and regulations, properly using PPE, the personal protective equipment that's going to be issued to our people on site, promptly reporting and documenting accidents and near misses, performing necessary housekeeping duties on a daily basis to maintain the site clean and free of any hazards, maintaining and reflecting a positive attitude towards safety, because again, once you feel and once you reflect that you care about safety, everyone else is going to get that feeling. Speaking out when employees are engaged in unsafe practices. You have to advise them, you have to correct them, and you have again to show what the mistakes are. The employee's responsibility, on the other hand, the recipients now, they have to comply with all applicable rules and regulations, follow the instructions from managers, supervisors, and safety personnel. They need to seek clarification when in doubt. If something is unclear, they need to ask. Notifying supervisors of hazardous conditions if the supervisor does not know already. Reporting accidents and near misses to supervisors. Reporting damage to property or equipment to a supervisor. performing housekeeping on a daily basis, again to maintain the site in a neat and clean environment, and having and displaying a positive attitude towards safety that is shared with everyone else, the supervisor and the top management as well. The safety professional responsibility include, that's going to be the safety manager, for example, on site, performing the safety audits, performing regular job site inspections, they're going to be specialized in safety, performing hazard analysis to try to analyze the situation and the task to be performed, what are the hazards, how to mitigate these hazards or how to protect against them, conducting accident investigation in case of an accident to know exactly what caused this accident to happen and try to eliminate that in the future, keeping records up to date for OSHA inspections, reporting on safety issues, and training employees, again making sure that everyone who's responsible for a certain task is well trained to perform this task in a safe fashion. Unfortunately, not everyone plays by the rules, so there's going to be some deviations from time to time, and therefore we have to have discipline and accountability. These are critical components of the safety program as they show the consequences for different behaviors, especially those resulting from failure to follow the regulations. It should explain that all employees at all levels, everyone, are expected to adhere to the rules and regulations. So for example, it doesn't work when the supervisor does not wear a hard hat, for example, and telling everyone else to wear a hard hat. You have, again, as we said before, to lead by example. Examples of the disciplinary actions include termination of any employee who fully and flagrantly endangers themselves and other workers or company property through unsafe behavior. You cannot tolerate that. It can come in two stages, so there might be a verbal warning for the first violation. For non-flagrant violations, that's now non-flagrant. For the flagrant, it might be 0 tolerance. A second violation might be a written warning to put it on their record. And then the third violation, if they insist on doing the same behavior, suspension without pay. And for the fourth violation, that's a serial violator, is going to be dismissal. That's for non-flagrant violations. Some companies might adopt a 0 tolerance policy resulting in dismissal from the first violation, like intoxication on site, for example. That should be a no-no. It's a totally unacceptable behavior and should result in immediate dismissal at the very first event. Again, to set an example. Companies might also add a reward or bonus for showing consistent adherence to the regulations and to offer a balancing carrot to the other sticks. So, for example, we can say, if we can work this month with no accidents whatsoever, with no lost time, then we're going to have a bonus for all the employees. Now let's talk about the safety program. What are the major elements of an effective one? Why is it important? What's the effect on insurance and the safety culture? What's the supervisor's role? How to develop the team participation and how to enforce the policy and communicate that policy, and how to identify the different hazards, and in case of any incidents or accidents, how to analyze them. Why have a written program? First of all, organization. It helps organize the safety policy. And consistency. It provides consistency over time, so the rules apply to everyone. And completeness of coverage. Again, if we have just verbal instructions, we might forget something, or something might be missed, whether the listener doesn't listen to it or the one who provides the information just skips it, but having it put in writing gives a better complete coverage of the information. And it provides sources and origins of stipulations. So for example, we can say the OSHA code clause number so and so refers to this issue and specifies that this has to be done in such and such manner. And it facilitates review for improvement. So after, again, we're trying to improve our performance, we have reduced our accidents by 25%. How can we reduce them by 50%? What additional measures can we make to reduce the number of accidents or incidents? Some of the elements of an effective of a written safety program include the safety policy, as we mentioned before, the management responsibilities, supervisor and employee responsibilities, safety committee or team, safety meetings, how often are they going to be, who should attend them, hazard recognition, incident investigation, elimination of workplace hazards, some of the basic safety rules, job-related safety rules for a particular job if it has some more stringent safety requirements, disciplinary policy as we just mentioned it, emergency planning, reporting accidents and incidents, what kind of documents need to be filled, the logs in general like the OSHA 300, and training, what's the initial training everyone should be subject to, what are the refreshers, how often are we going to have these, what kind of specialized training someone might be required to take, and if you're going to be a supervisor you need to have a higher level of training. If you're going to be a competent person you need to have a higher level of training. What kind of training should that be? Additional components may include the personal protective equipment hazard analysis and program, how to inspect the gloves, the boots, the hard hat, the goggles to make sure that they're working properly. Respirator program if you're going to work in an environment that has a hazardous air to breathe. For example, it has some fumes or some smoke or some other components that might be hazardous to breathe. Lockout and tag out, which is the control of hazardous energy, especially in case of electrical outlets and electrical devices. Permit required confined space entry, electrical safety, first aid plan, hazard communication program. What's the diamond, for example, what does it mean, what are the different colors, and what about fire hazards and so on. Welding hot work program, hearing conservation program for if you're going to work in a loud environment, then you need to protect your hearing. Blood-borne pathogen plan, violence in the workplace plan, emergency action plan, and hazardous waste operations plan. How are we going to dispose of hazardous waste? Each employee should have a safety and health record. So here we have an example that shows the name, job title, department, whether that employee is permanent or temporary, and the date they were hired. What kind of hazards are they going to be exposed to in their current job, and occupational health medical examination required if there's going to be asbestos exposure or lead exposure, or hearing, again if you're going to work in a loud environment, and other hazards they might be exposed to. Mandatory training topics to be briefed to all personnel, initial when conducted. So you're going to put the initial, the supervisor is going to put the initial when that training is going to be conducted. So everyone should know, for example, the emergency telephone numbers, location of medical facilities and first aid kits, etc. Initial individual training topics. So depending on their job and depending on the task they're required to do, if they're electricians, for example, then there's going to be lockout and tag out. If they're going to be lifting heavy objects, then back injury prevention. If they're going to be working where they might have some cuts, then blood-borne pathogens, and so on and so forth. And then personal protective equipment issued, the PPE issued, head protection, arm and hand, respiratory, eye, foot, face, hearing. So they're going to again initial when they receive any one of these types of PPE. And then personal protection provided in the work area, again they're going to initial next to that. So that's going to be a record for each and every employee. The four major elements of an effective safety program include the management commitment and employee involvement, the work site analysis, again to identify what kind of hazards we might have on site in general and for particular jobs on that site. If we're going to have structural steel, for example, for the skeleton, there's going to be working at higher altitudes, so there's definitely falls are going to be one of the issues. If you're going to have heavy equipment working on site, then again struck by might be an issue. If you're going to work near power lines, then definitely electrocution is going to be an issue. If you're going to have deep excavation, then definitely cave-ins are going to be issues. So that's the work site analysis. Hazard prevention and control. Once we identify the hazards, we have to devise means to prevent them from happening and controlling that. And safety and health training, train the employees to make sure that they know how to deal with these hazards. And we're going to have a record of the safety training that shows the date, the topic on which the employees have been trained, the supervisor signature and the employee signature. And this is a record that needs to be kept on site, and OSHA is going to inspect that to make sure that everyone has been properly trained. Management must commit resources because again, safety is going to cost money and time, and individuals must commit to personal safety. We might form, or we should form, a safety committee, and it should have a policy. So the safety committee, it might select a certain name, for example, for itself, or a nickname, and it's going to have a motto, for example, 0 accidents, and who's the leader, the recorder of the safety meetings and the safety committee meetings, who are the members, and then the charter of that safety policy. Program assessment checklist. This is something, once we have a written program, we need to make sure that it includes all of these. So this is a planning and control tool. We're going to write what it needs to have, and then we're going to check each one as we finalize it and as we ensure that it's existing in our plan. You can see these in the lecture online in the PDF file. The safety culture must run through the entire organization from top to bottom. So it has, again, the leaders have to lead by example, and they have to show their full commitment to safety. So everyone involved in the organization, from the top, from the CEO to the craft, who are going to be doing the daily jobs on site. Supervisors must understand the safety program, to be able to communicate it safely to the employees, and to be able to enforce it without any prejudice. To enforce the policy, you have to observe the work behavior. Define critical behaviors. If you notice that someone is showing disregard to safety precautions, so define the critical behaviors by observation. Sometimes video recording is going to be a good tool. And as you all know from visiting construction sites, once you have a video camera on site, everyone pays attention and everyone tries to behave to be on their best behavior. This is something in psychology called the Hawthorne effect. The Hawthorne effect, if you have a camera or even if you have a clipboard walking around on site, people are going to pay attention and they're going to behave in a better way. Inform employees of safe procedure to follow. Show them what's the proper thing to do, and wait for their feedback. Make sure that they do understand what kind of instructions you have been given them, and intervene if you feel that they do not understand or they're not listening attentively. Stand your ground. Employees are going to try to resist the application of the safety policy because they feel that it's going to take more time, it's going to be heavy, it's going to be hot in summer, etc. Stand your ground. Do not accept any excuses. So employees may make excuses or deny a problem exists. Do not be apologetic. Firmly restate your position, and again, wait for feedback and intervene in case you do not get the proper feedback. Enforce the policy. Confirm that the employee understands the safety procedures. You may ask employee to state the procedure back to you. So repeating is going to be a good way of showing that. Emphasize your concern for the employee's well-being. I'm doing that for you. I care for you. And communicate knowledge of the program, the values of the company, the culture. We are a company that has a good safety culture. The goals, we want to have 0 accidents. Body language, show that verbally and through your body language as well, that you care for them and you are trying to help them do their job in a safe way. And lead by example, so you cannot tell them to do something that you're not doing yourself. And make sure that the environment is conducive to following these safety regulations. Make sure that they're listening, because sometimes you may say whatever you want and no one's paying attention. So make eye contact. Make sure that they're looking at you while you're giving the instructions. And watch for head nodding, which shows that they are listening. Interruptions. Try to avoid any interruptions, and if there's any interruption, repeat what you have just said. Repeat back and make them do it. So repeat after me. We are going to wear our safety goggles while doing that. We are going to wear our hard hats anytime we are on site, and so on. Facial expressions. Watch their facial expressions. Yeah, sure. Their posture and their body movements. Are they paying attention or not? So non-verbal ways of showing that you care and you have a good safety culture is clean toilets. For example, good housekeeping on site, clean water supplied, you're caring for the health of your employees, enforcing housekeeping, we're not going to leave any electrical wires or cables just like that so that people can trip on them and can be electrocuted. Organized tools and supply sheds. Again, that shows that the company is very well organized and cares for its employees. Whenever I need a piece of equipment or a tool, I know where to find it, and after I'm done, I'm going to return it to the same place. Office safety. Again, the office itself is safe with the proper guardrails and so on and so forth. A hazard is an accident waiting to happen, and it can result in injuries, death, disease, property damage, and certainly it's going to have economic loss, economic effects as well. Hazard identification, you need to understand the task factors, so job related for this particular job or for this particular task on this particular site, are there any specific hazards? Employee factors, is that employee prone to accidents, or is that job type prone to accidents? Equipment factors, this equipment needs some specific precautions to be used safely, so what are these precautions? Self-inspection, make sure that everyone checks their own gear and make sure that it's working properly, especially when you're talking about a harness, for example, a fall protection harness. Make sure that it's working properly, because if it's not working properly, it's totally useless. Likely credible accidents. Accidents might happen from time to time, so what's a credible accident? Something that can be, okay, it was not your fault, we can live with that. Measures to mitigate them. Again, the best thing to learn from an accident is how to avoid its repetition. And checklists like the one that we saw on the safety and health program, making sure that we have done all of our homework, that nothing is missing. And continual re-evaluation, because the conditions might change. Today, for example, we're working in a trench in a dry environment. Last night it has rained heavily. Now the soil itself is destabilized, so we need to re-evaluate to see if we're going to need any additional shoring or any additional protection. If accidents happen, or whenever they happen, we need to analyze this accident to know why did it happen and how to prevent it in the future. So that should begin immediately before the conditions change, before anything changes. Conducted by a supervisor who knows how to analyze the accident, and the reasons for investigating. Why are we investigating this accident? First of all, to satisfy OSHA requirement. It's required by OSHA to investigate the accidents immediately. To meet the insurance requirements, the insurance company requirements, because if we're going to seek compensation for the loss, then we need to show that we have conducted an accident analysis. To identify the causes, whether they are direct, indirect, and specifically the root cause for the accident, not only the symptoms but the root cause of the accident. And to provide a record for the accident, because again that's required by OSHA. And to quantify cost, which might be again related to the insurance claim. And to adjust operations, again to avoid the repetition of that accident, to prevent future incidents. The accident analysis procedure: close the area, again to keep the conditions as they were when the accident occurred. Don't alter the scene, like CSI when they investigate a crime, they make sure that the site is cordoned or closed so that nothing changes. Interview the personnel who were there. What did you see? What did you hear? What exactly happened? And analyze evidence objectively. Looking at the existing scene, you can analyze it through your experience and know exactly what happened, because sometimes the personnel might lie or might deny something or might have limited information, so you can conclude additional things by paying attention to the environment around you. And what are the lessons learned? We're not trying to blame anyone, as we're trying to protect everyone from the repetition of that accident. So basically this is our lecture on the safety and health program. I hope that you are paying attention to what we're discussing. I hope you learned about the safety program here, and I hope you implement that once you work on the construction site, whether through your co-op or through your full employment. See you in another lecture.